What's up, everybody? Jason here with Joe and Cramser. We are very excited today. We are kicking off our March Badness tournament, trying to determine the worst album of all time. Very unscientific methods, but I think we can get it done. If you watched Joe and Cram on the Monday morning talk show Good Music America, you have seen the bracket. If you haven't, we'll put that up on the screen. We've got 32 albums facing off. We've got Life, Love, and Hope by Boston facing off against Ratitude by Weezer. We've got Noah by Bob Seger facing off against The Weirdness by The Stooges. We've got Philosophy of the World by The Shags facing off against Van Halen 3. Standing in the Spotlight by Dee Dee Ramone, aka Dee Dee King, facing off against the self-titled album by The Fray. We've got Ghost of Download by Blondie facing off against Music from the Elder by Kiss. Garth Brooks in The Life of Chris Gaines versus All the Right Reasons by Nickelback. Results May Vary by Limp Bizkit facing off against Songs from Black Mountain by Live. We've got Lulu by Lou Reed and Metallica facing off against How It Could Be by Eddie Murphy. Angelic to the Core by Corey Feldman facing off against ZZ Top's Triple X. Cut the Crap by The Clash facing off against Summer in Paradise by the Beach Boys. We've got The Click by AJR facing off against The Anthem of the Peaceful Army by Greta Van Fleet. We've got Fun Style by Liz Phair facing off against To the Hard Way by Greg Almond and Cher. Playing with Fire by Kevin Federline versus Mardi Gras by Creedence Clearwater Revival. Other Voices by The Doors facing off against Bon Jovi 2020. A Long Road Out of Eden by The Eagles facing off against Victim of Love by Elton John. And Ummagumma by Pink Floyd facing off against Chinese Democracy by Guns N' Roses. So quickly, some rules, how this is going to work. We're going to go match by match and select what we think is the worst. Any album that gets 2 votes moves on to the next round. So for round 1, we're going to quickly go through and we're going to get us down from 32 to 16. When this video becomes available to everyone to watch, there will be a link in the description that people can click and go vote on round 2. The voting for round 2 will count as 2 points. So that means the audience has a huge say from round 2 forward. Basically, for anything the audience picks not to move on, all 3 of us unanimously have to disagree with the audience selection. So that's how it's going to work. We're just going to go debate these albums quickly and say which one we think is the worst of the 2. So let's get into it, I guess. The first up is Boston, Life, Love, and Hope, which we talked about on the channel recently, up against Ratitude by Weezer.
I am going to go, the worst album is by a lot. This is a blowout. It's like a perfect 1 to 16 matchup to me. Life, Love, and Hope by Boston, far worse than Ratitude by Weezer. This album is a duke to me. I expect it on paper to go all the way to the finals. I don't think they're getting very good odds in Vegas because I think it's a slam dunk. Ratitude's pretty bad, but it's, to me, just kind of bad Weezer. Life, Love, and Hope is just bad rock music. Really bad. So I'm going Life, Love, and Hope.
I have to get Life, Love, and Hope on this, but it's a lot closer than Cramser makes it sound. I think Ratitude may have the worst lyrics of any album in history. Rivers Cuomo's lyrics on that album are so bad. It's like a 12-year-old trying to write. I listened to it today and I was horrified. I forgot how bad it was. So I got to go with Boston. But like any other mashup, I think I would take Ratitude. Ratitude might be the second worst album on this entire list.
My vote doesn't really matter since you both are going Boston, but I would also be going Boston. I agree. It's terrible. I mean, I expect bad things from Weezer at this point. So yeah, I think the less forgivable one is the Boston record.
All right, so Boston moves on with Life, Love, and Hope. I would have also lobbied hard to get another Boston album in this tournament, but I think it's only fair that everyone's got one. All right, so next up, we've got Noah by Bob Seger, just Bob Seger, not the Silver Bullet Band, and The Weirdness by The Stooges. Joe, what do you got?
You nominated Noah, and I don't know why, because I didn't mind it at all. I thought it was pretty decent. Maybe the critics hated it. I don't know why it made the list exactly, but I didn't think it was that bad. It's Bob Seger and Friends, and it's just kind of like a late 60s rock album. So I'm going the weirdness on this one.
Yeah, I kind of like Noah. I thought it was pretty decent. 60s pop, a little psychedelia thrown in there, kind of cool. Even the Stooges record, The Weirdness, I don't think it's good, but I don't think it's like bottom 32 albums of all time bad. So probably don't really think either one should really necessarily be in the mix. That's worth pointing out again too, that we don't necessarily think all of these albums are horrible. There are definitely records that we like in the mix and in play here. So this one, yeah, I'm going to go with the Stooges, but only by default because I actually like the Bob Seger one a good bit.
Well, then The Weirdness by the Stooges, move on. It would also be my vote. I think this was an interesting matchup because I like Bob Seger a lot. I don't like Noah. I don't think it's terrible. I'd probably give it 2 stars and probably give like the Stooges 2, maybe 1.5, but it's not terrible. It just seems like they're kind of out of swagger and confidence. But yeah, knowing now that it looks like the Stooges is going to go up against Boston, well, we'll talk about that later. But all right, we've got The Weirdness by the Stooges moving on into the Sweet 16.
Okay, the next matchup, we got the Shags with Philosophy of the World going up against the king of just bad ideas and Van Halen 3, Gary Cherone on vocals. And he might not even be the worst thing about this album. Jason, I think you're going to start off with your vote on this.
I mean, this is kind of like the Weezer Boston matchup in that the Van Halen record, I think, is just a bad Van Halen record, but the Shags is, I don't know. I know there's people that like this record and champion it, but I don't know how. This record for me is like the worst Sonic Youth record to Joe. I just don't get it at all. Nothing musical about it. It's got to be the Shags for me.
The only interesting thing about this album is the fascination that it got produced and attempted to sell in the first place. It's dreadful. I know, like Jason said, it's got that weird cult following. Van Halen 3 is very bad. This one is borderline unlistenable, and it's barely even music. So I am with you. I'm going Philosophy of the World by the Shags.
Well, it's another one where the vote doesn't matter for the third person. For the record, I'd go the Shags, but this is sort of like a colossal, this is like King Kong versus Godzilla for me. But the Shags really is like, I can't believe it's real. Like, it has to be a joke. But it's one of the few records that could beat out Van Halen on my bracket. So the Shags moves on.
All right, let's see. Will we ever have a dissenting opinion here? This next one, I think, is one of the most interesting matchups. We've got Standing in the Spotlight by Dee Dee Ramone. On this record, he's going by D.D. King. For anyone who doesn't know, in the late 80s, Dee Dee Ramone attempted to make a hip-hop album. Going up against The Fray by The Fray. Yeah, I'm interested to see this one. What are you guys going with?
Well, I hate The Fray. They're everything wrong with mainstream pop rock. Really just music for coffee shops and nothing else. Standing in the Spotlight is really bad. I had a great time listening to how bad it was, but I think it's a better exercise to be more objective than we usually are. Despite the good feelings I got in my body listening to this piece of horse crap that is the pop rap that he's doing or whatever, just terrible. I laughed and smiled and enjoyed it, enjoyed the 35, 40 minutes. But objectively, I do have to say that it's worse. So I've got D.D. King moving on.
I got to go with Dee Dee on this. The Fray is, they had that big song that was on Grey's Anatomy or whatever. That's not even on this one. So you got even worse than Over My Head and whatever the heck that Grey's Anatomy song was. It's so mediocre that it's bad, but it's not like aggressively bad. So I got to go with Dee Dee on this, but it's the Fray is just, they're just a bad band. Dee Dee King at least has the Ramones history to back him up.
Yeah, this was tough because I don't hate The Fray. I just think they're kind of bland and mediocre. And the D.D. King, it does have like this joy and like childlike innocence to it. It's kind of like, I don't know, fun to listen to, even though it's terrible. But yeah, I'm going D.D. King too. It's another unanimous decision.
Who do you prefer, The Fray or Snow Patrol?
Snow Patrol by a lot.
Snow Patrol, but only their one album with Spitting Games on it.
I'm with Joe. All right. So we're now down into the bottom left region of the bracket. And I think this next one is really close. Ghosts of Download by Blondie versus Music from the Elder by Kiss.
Well, I got to go with my boys in Kiss, Not Moving On. Blondie clearly moves on for me. The Kiss album isn't great. It's like Queen. It would be like a Queen cover band trying to do like their own music. Like it's wildly outside their comfort zone and it shows. But it's kind of got like an awkward charm to it. They're trying something new. I give them props for that. Ghosts of Download is just terrible. It was packaged with the greatest hits. It's not even like a real album. Some of the worst lyrics, and Debbie Harry just seems so forced on this. Just awful. Blondie's second act was so bad. So I got to go with Blondie moving on.
So Kiss made it into the tournament based on this record's reputation, but I think it is one of the most unfairly derided records ever. It's easily my favorite of all 32 of these. If you've seen my Kiss listography, it's my fourth favorite Kiss record. I like it a lot. Goes to Download sucks. It's really, really bad. So easy decision for me. Gotta be Blondie.
All right. So Blondie is moving on. It really sucks. But my vote was for Kiss because that one doesn't just suck, but it is a just terrible idea of who they are as a band. I mean, this would be like, I don't know, like Rush deciding to do like a folk album or something. Like, I don't know. It is, like Joe said, so bizarrely outside of their comfort zone. I don't dislike the second half of Blondie's career nearly as much as you guys. This is clearly their worst album, though. All right. Blondie, moving on with Ghosts of Download.
All right, we're going on. This is a special one, I think. We got Garth Brooks presents The Life of Chris Gaines. I think this is also like subtitled Greatest Hits. So we got like 3 subtitles going on this one. Really bad, but it's up against a champion of mid-2000s post-grunge, just garbage in Nickelback's. It could have been multiple Nickelback albums, but we went with all the right reasons. Jason, what do you think about this one?
This is an interesting one. The Chris Gaines one, I listened to it. I don't think it's actually that bad. It's more bad in concept than it is in execution. I think some of the songs are okay. Some of his vocals are decent. He's doing kind of like an R&B thing. He probably thought it was too far outside of his wheelhouse to do it under his own name, but doing it under an alter ego just made it really weird. So I don't know. Nickelback, not good. Really hate the production on it. None of the instrumentation on it sounds real. It's like all very obviously like quantized and just had the life sucked out of it. So Nickelback for me.
I don't like any stadium country, bro country, popular country. I don't like Garth Brooks. Hate the way he jumps around the stage with that cowboy hat on and that wireless mic. Hate everything about him, but I got to go with Nickelback moving on. It has just everything that I hate about a genre I love: rock, post-grunge, grunge, anything. They're one of the worst bands of all time, and this song has Rockstar on it, which might be one of the worst songs I've ever heard. Maybe one day we'll do a worst song tournament, but it is just the shallowest piece of garbage ever. And every song is just the same with this build up and power chords and then a little bit of a drum fill and then this BS chorus that sounds just like every other chorus. I don't even want to talk about it. All right, that's moving on. Nickelback, all the right reasons.
Yeah, that was also my vote. If I had to vote for worst song, it would definitely be Animals from this album. I think the Chris Gaines one is okay. And I actually think Garth Brooks is a great performer. I saw him live and he was really, really good. So I kind of like Garth. This is not a good album, but Nickelback is aggressively bad hard rock that is just not hard. It's the softest band in the universe trying to play hard rock, and they just suck. Chad Kroeger's a buffoon. So Nickelback, moving on, big time win. This is a blowout victory for Nickelback.
All right. Looks like we did a pretty good job with the seating because we have yet to see a disagreement here. But I think we got a pretty good opportunity here for a split. We've got results may vary by Limp Bizkit up against Songs from Black Mountain by Live.
Where do I begin? This matchup's going into overtime, maybe 2 overtimes, because it is tough. Like Nickelback, I hate everything about Limp Bizkit and what they're about and what they've done to music. There are very few albums in the history of my life that were as disappointing and just a step in the worst direction possible than this Live album, which essentially just sounds like a corny ass worship album almost. They started to do that on Birds of Prey a little bit, and then this one just takes it so much further. Like where they came from throwing copper in like mid-90s Live, which I think is severely underrated, and to come here with just this sanitized, trite, like feel-goodery garbage. But at the same time, Limp Bizkit is Limp Bizkit. I'm so torn on this one, but I gotta say the worst album is Results May Vary by Limp Bizkit. I just can't find anything remotely good about it, so it's tough. But
yeah, I'm totally in the Limp Bizkit camp. I don't quite see the hatred for Songs from Black Mountain, especially since Birds of Prey put them down this path, and this is just, again, it's aggressively mediocre. It's worse because Live, they made my top 5 in '94. So obviously, I really like Throwing Copper. Behind Blue Eyes is the worst cover of all time, so that alone puts Limp Bizkit moving on in my book.
I had Live. It is just really horrible. That first song on it, I forget what it's called, is so embarrassing. I remember getting that disc because I didn't mind Birds of Prey. I followed Live all the way up until this record, and immediately upon putting it on was just extremely disappointed. So that still stings. That stays with me. Limp Bizkit sucks. Their version of Behind Blue Eyes is terrible, but I would still rather listen to that than listen to a band that I once liked do this.
Yeah, it was really close for me, but Limp Bizkit moves on. I got some pretty heavy hitters and going into the Sweet 16 with them and Nickelback. All right. So finishing off the left side of the bracket, we got Lulu by Lou Reed and Metallica versus How It Could Be by Eddie Murphy.
This is a pretty close one, but not really, because Lulu's not even really music. It's like poetry being read and then someone listening to Metallica in like the background or another room or something. So it's hard to even call this music. The Eddie Murphy album's just one of those vanity projects that just had no legs from the beginning. He can't really sing, and like the background music's like cheesy 80s Stevie Wonder, and he's kind of like sort of in key. Party All the Time, that's a great song, but everything else is terrible. But Lulu wins just because it's just one of those albums that makes no sense and should never have been made in the first place.
Yeah, this one here might have been the easiest decision for me. Easily Lulu, not even close. If it was totally up to us and there was no audience participation voting, I would have Lulu pegged for at least the final 4. So we'll see how it goes with the fan vote, but there's no way that this isn't one of the worst ever.
Agreed. Lulu by Lou Reed and Metallica moves on. That was also my pick. Party All the Time is too good. It's just too good. And I mean, Christ, there's a song where Lou Reed says, "I want to be dry and spermless like a girl, like a girl." It's all right. Let's go to the next one.
All right, we're kicking off, we'll call this the East region. We got Corey Feldman's Angelic to the Core. It's a 2, not TO. Up against ZZ Top's XXX, Triple X, whatever you want to call it, their 30th anniversary album. Jason, who do you got in this matchup? I think it's pretty clear. This is a 1 versus 8, so I think we know who the favorite is on this.
Yeah, this is another one of those cases where it's like an all-time bad record against a record that's just bad for that band. So I'll take a bad ZZ Top record any day over whatever this Corey Feldman record is. He couldn't even design a record cover in the right format that they have to put black bars at the top and bottom. It's like, what are you doing, dude? Why'd you make it a rectangle?
Well, let me start off by just saying that this is a bad ZZ Top record, really bad. That's very bad. And on Good Music America, I did allude to the fact that I love Corey Feldman as a person and as an actor. But come on, Corey, I can't defend this. This is out of control, ridiculous. And if I had to pick one, if no one has heard any of these and I had to pick one of these albums to listen to just out of pure interest or curiosity, this would be the one. I have no idea what the idea is behind any decision during this. The Charlie's Angel is really weird when he's like, hey, angels, make sure you look sexy out there and blah, blah, blah. And then it becomes this weird like EDM. It's like not even as clean as EDM. It's just ugly as hell. He's always trying to sing like Michael Jackson. It's so bad. I got to listen to it again at some point just to compare it to what I write privately so I can just tap myself on the back, for God's sakes. Sorry, Corey Feldman. I love you. Lost Boys, Stand By Me, Burbs for life, but you're moving on, pal.
Yeah, this is like 164 to nothing, just shut out. Not even, the other team didn't even show up. They got quarantined. Again, like the Shags album, I can't believe this is a real thing. Like, I can't believe there wasn't some like parody attempt or just like, haha, we're going to do this because it's going to piss everybody off. Like, I can't believe he thought this was music. So I got this. If I was filling out my own bracket, on the side for money, this would be penciled in for national champion, I think. I can't imagine anything ever being as bad as this album.
Another tough matchup. We've got Cut the Crap by The Clash up against Summer in Paradise by the Beach Boys.
Yeah, this is my Twilight Zone matchup. I think Joe will go through this when Chinese Democracy comes up because everyone else thinks this album by The Clash is terrible. I don't see it at all. I like this album. I straight up like it. I think it's really weird and peculiar, and there's a bunch of songs on it that I like. Never heard Summer in Paradise before. It's really bad, and it is the anti-approach to how you make a Beach Boys record. Like, I don't get it at all. I still don't think it's absolutely terrible, but this is one of the most misproduced albums I've ever heard in my life. And because I like Cut the Crap, I've got to move. I got to have the Beach Boys with Summer in Paradise move on, but I don't think it's got the legs to get too far. But yeah, for me, I know there's a couple other commenters out there that got my back. That Cut the Crap is perfectly fine, but I got the Beach Boys moving on as the worst album.
Well, we know my proclivities with Cut the Crap. We know I hate it. That is clear. Do I hate it more than the Beach Boys? It's interesting because they're both wildly, like you said, Kramser. Beach Boys is so just like badly produced. But I also think Cut the Crap is horribly produced. It's like they took Joe Strummer's words and put it over like completely different music than he was expecting. Like it's like two different projects going on, and they just stole Joe Strummer's vocals and just put them over something. But that being said, the Beach Boys one, I love the Beach Boys, so it's hard to listen to this from them. It's so horribly just like cheesy production, bad synths, just so like precious. It's disgusting. It makes me want to puke. So I got the Beach Boys moving on.
Yep. This is an unfortunate matchup, I think, because in my mind, Cut the Crap is one of the worst albums ever. It should at least be making it to like the Elite Eight, I feel like. But this Beach Boys record is terrible. And probably because I like the Beach Boys a lot more than the Clash, it hurts a little bit more. So I got the Beach Boys too.
Thank God. I didn't want to be the guy that had an album going very far in this tournament that he gave 3.5 out of 5 stars to, which is where I've got it. So, I'm off the hook. Check out Cut the Crap by The Clash. It's really good. All right, now I've got, this one was one of the matchups I had the biggest trouble with. We've got The Click by AJR versus Peaceful Army by Greta Van Fleet.
This is a tough one because it's like two younger bands going up against each other. Greta Van Fleet, I don't hate them though as much as Kramzer, and I think Jason does. I like the music. I think the vocals are just way too much try hard Robert Plant. But the AJR one's kind of weird in like a millennial way, and I hate millennials. So I gotta have AJR moving on. Just it's so like SoundCloud pop, like trying to be not ironic, like too earnest. And it's just really annoying. Like it's not the worst thing on this tournament, but it's just really aggravating to listen to. So I gotta have AJR moving on.
Looking at this on paper, I thought this was going to be one of the tougher matchups. Once I started listening, not even close. Greta Van Fleet is far, far worse than AJR. Far worse. So we finally have someone coming in with a tie-breaking decision.
All right. I feel like there's kind of this shadowy element throughout the channel, especially because our demographic tends to go a little older. And I know a lot of older people that grew up with classic rock that absolutely love Greta Van Fleet. And I cannot stand them whatsoever, especially the lead singer. Joe brought up a good point that if they had a different singer, they would be so much more acceptable. I hate the lead singer. I hate watching him sing with they're a costume band, the ridiculous outfits with like the Native American feathers, with like the Bowie-esque Starman white jumpsuit. He goes like this when he sings. Everything is fireworks coming out of his mouth. And then they won't even admit that they think he sounds like Robert Plant. He literally, when they first came out, was like, well, I don't even know if we've ever heard Led Zeppelin. We more go for like ZZ Top and that sort of stuff. It's like, get the hell out of here. That said, I'm with Joe. AJR is moving on. It is just utter garbage, but it was close because some of it is so bad, and because it's like part of like a culture of SoundCloud pop, that you could almost hear it being wildly loved, like especially a song like Drama. Like it's that close to being really popular, but it's just terrible. Some of the worst lyrics, like the choices of what they want these songs to be about, are just so dumb.
Although I think the winner there will have a chance to make a good run, because this next matchup, it's a little interesting. We got Liz Phair with Fun Style up against To the Hard Way, credited to All Man and Woman, aka Greg Holland and Cher, two lovers making a record together. Very, very precious. Jason, who do you got on this matchup?
This is an interesting one. The Greg Allman and Cher one, for anyone who doesn't know, they dated in the 70s. That's why this record exists. It's weird. And for Greg Allman and his fans, probably a little embarrassing that it exists. But it's not that terrible. It's completely listenable. The Liz Phair record has moments that are okay, but the lows of the Liz Phair record are among the lowest lows ever. Really, really, really bad stuff. So it's got to be Liz Phair in this matchup.
I am with Jason. Liz Phair moves on for all the exact reasons. There's 3 or 4 songs on the Liz Phair that are among the worst things I've ever heard. The other stuff's not very good. It sounds like she's trying to be like Nico at times. It's very bad. The other one is just really corny. It's still very listenable. I think it's one of the better albums in this whole tournament. I'm not going to seek it out to listen to, but it's also kind of sweet. You can tell they're just like annoyingly kind of like gaga for each other a little bit. But yeah, this Liz Phair one is just terrible. The first 2 songs on this, like if we didn't have this as a project, it would be a quick, just like, like just terrible. So Liz Phair, moving on.
Yeah, Liz Phair, I think, is the obvious winner here. It's just one of those projects that should never have seen the light of day. And apparently, like, these were like the rejected tracks and like stuff left over, and the label didn't want her to release this. So it's like personal stuff, but like, why would you release this ever? The Allman and Woman album, it kind of gets the benefit of the doubt because they're covers. So how bad? I mean, you can ruin a cover, but it's real tough to have good songs in theory going up against whatever the hell Liz Phair was throwing out on some of these. You're right. The first 2 songs, they could match up with any 2 songs probably on this whole list as far as just like cringiness. So yeah, Liz Phair with another blowout victory. She could make a run for it too with this one.
All right, next up, we've got a big mismatch, I think, here. We've got Playing with Fire by Kevin Federline up against Mardi Gras by CCR.
Yeah, I got Federline, moving on. This is the worst rated album ever on AllMusic or something, some website. And I didn't really mind Mardi Gras. When we did the CCR listography, I didn't see why this was, considered easily their worst. Wasn't even my worst. So an easy win. At the same time, I can't really talk about how bad this Federline album is because it kind of just sounds like a lot of normal rap to me. I know a lot of the raps are really cheesy. He says, "I'm hotter than a pizza" at some point, but I guarantee you there's other rap out there that kind of has stuff this bad. I know I'm not I'm not an expert on this, but I obviously disliked it, but among I know what some really good rap is that I like, but if you gave me a good chunk of rap, just random rap albums, I don't know that I would pick this one out without knowing it was Kevin Federline and be like, this one is clearly the worst. So, it's moving on, but I don't know how much gravitas it has going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the resident hater of the CCR Mardi Gras record on this channel. I think I gave it a half star or something. And it's sort of just one of those situations where it's so much worse than all the other ones. This is, again, a cut the crap situation for Kramzer, because it is clearly the worst CCR album. But there's a couple decent tracks from Fogerty on here. So it's not quite like a, Doors after Jim Morrison left kind of thing. So it's redeemable. But I mean, I kind of agree with Kramzer that Kevin Federline sucks, but it's like I've heard worse probably this year. So I don't think it's going to make a run to the finals. I think it'll be an underdog in the next round. But yeah, Kevin Federline moving on for me.
I feel a lot the way Cram does. This could have been almost any rap album up against CCR. I don't even think I didn't have it at the bottom of my CCR list either. I think it's a decent record. Easily got to be Kevin Federline.
All right. Got a couple of rock radio heavyweights, sort of. Not what you're used to, but we've got The Doors with Other Voices versus Bon Jovi with Bon Jovi 2020.
On paper, I thought this was going to be a big time blowout. Then I listened to 2020. And it is really close. I think Bon Jovi was trying to make this like The Rising. Like it's one of those like, this is the moment. I'm going to rise to it. I'm going to pen these beautiful lyrics that'll lift the spirits of America in these trying times of quarantine and COVID. And it's just so terrible. You were not wrong putting it at the bottom of your list, Kramzer. It moves into my bottom for 2020. And I think I got to have it moving on. As much as I hated Doors, Other Voices, I got to say the Bon Jovi album is just one of the worst albums I've ever heard. And he wants it to be good so bad that it makes it even worse. So I got to go. Bon Jovi 2020, huge upset.
Yep.
Yes.
The Bon Jovi album is really bad. Got to move on.
You could never laugh like this about this album in front of him because you would feel so bad because his heart was really just like in the right place. But like, oh my God. The song about George Floyd and just when he's like, I can't breathe. It's just, it was a good shot. You shoot your shot, airballed it though. Yes, I have that moving on as well. And I think it is a potential Gonzaga or like DePaul from a few years ago where this might not look like a strong contender, but it could go. It could go.
Yeah, it's like a George Mason Final Four. Like I have a feeling that's what's coming for it. It could make a run here. Next we got two legacy acts. Probably not what they were expecting though. We got Eagles with Long Road Out of Eden and Elton John with Victim of Love, which he was probably on so much cocaine for this he doesn't remember. The Eagles, however, have no excuse. Jason, what do you think?
Kind of a tough one. These were my bottom ranked albums in each of the listographies. I've talked a lot on the channel about how much I dislike Long Road Out of Eden. I think it's incredibly just pandering and corny. It was released exclusively originally at Walmart, which just is a bad look, I think. The Elton John one does come during his kind of like disco phase. He had a producer work on it. Apparently, all he did was show up and sing it. He had very little involvement in any of the music. Based on only the opening tracks, I would go with Elton John because that cover of Johnny Be Good is horrendous. But then it kind of turns around and it's just kind of like a whatever disco record with Elton John singing. The Eagles, though, continues to be terrible the rest of the way through. The only things on there that are somewhat listenable are the Timothy B. Schmidt tracks. So got to be that.
I don't think this was close whatsoever. It's a very uneventful Elton John record. I don't know why you would play Johnny Be Good that slowly. Like that was the weirdest thing. When I listened to it, I knew, like I looked at the track listing and I was like, oh, okay, Johnny Be Good first. And then like 40 seconds into it, I was like, did they label it wrong? Like it doesn't even get to, like, it's so bizarre. But this Eagles album is just hot trash. It's really bad. It's so corny, like Jason said. It goes on forever. It's barely musical. It's them just kind of flattering themselves and not thinking they got to put any effort into it. And yeah, an easy win for me. Eagles, move on.
Well, my vote doesn't count, but it was close for me. Eagles is bad, but it's really long and bad. Elton John's bad, but it's shorter and bad. So I guess I'd go with Eagles because it's a less pleasant listening experience having to listen to the whole thing. I think I gave it like 2 stars though. It's like a 4 out of 10. Elton's is probably worse. You know what? I'm going to go with Elton, but it doesn't matter.
The last matchup, if you saw our albums of the year 2008, you know how one of us is voting on this one. We've got Ummagumma by Pink Floyd up against Chinese Democracy by Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, neither of these I like at all. But even though I would love to create some dramatic tension, I've got Pink Floyd moving on. I think Chinese Democracy is pretty bad, but I think it gets a like terrible reputation because of the story behind the making of it. Yeah, I don't like it, but I don't think much of Ummagumma, and I would much rather sit through Chinese Democracy. So yeah, I've got Ummagumma moving on by Pink Floyd. But I don't think I don't see that as a heavy contender to win this full tournament.
I feel like the fans are gonna put a stop to Ummagumma pretty quick. Obviously, I'm picking Ummagumma to move on. It was my lowest rated Pink Floyd. I think Guns N' Roses, Chinese Democracy is fantastic, totally underrated, just very kind of weird, interesting, cool album. And it has a bad reputation, but it was also ranked 12th by Rolling Stone in 2008. So some critics liked it, some critics hated it. I think it's pretty good. It's interesting. I like Axl Rose, so I'm glad the Crams are. I was worried for a second that it was gonna find a way to sneak through, but yeah, Amagama's moving on.
Here's what we got for round 2 that you will be able to vote on right now by clicking on the link in the description. We're going to have Boston, Life, Love, and Hope up against The Weirdness by the Stooges, Philosophy of the World by the Shags up against Standing in the Spotlight by D.D. King. We've got Ghost of Download by Blondie up against All the Right Reasons by Nickelback. We've got Results May Vary by Limp Bizkit up against Lulu by Lou Reed and Metallica. We've got Angelic to the Core by Corey Feldman facing off against Summer in Paradise by the Beach Boys. We've got The Click by AJR facing off against Liz Phair. Now that is one to watch. We've got Playing with Fire by Kevin Federline up against Bon Jovi 2020. That could also be a pretty solid matchup. And the classic rock heavyweights facing off, Long Road Out of Eden by the Eagles up against Amagama by Pink Floyd. So click the link, go vote. Remember, the winner of the poll will get 2 points, meaning for us to overturn any fan vote, we all need to unanimously disagree with what the audience says. So should be interesting. Interested to see how that goes. Stay tuned. We'll be back with round 2 next week. Any thoughts before we close out here?
Really compelling matchups in this next round. I think the first round was a little bit of a wash, but we got some really great matchups going on in round 2. Sweet 16, baby.
Yeah, and I know it's 16 albums out there, but if you don't know some of them, really do your best to at least give it a listen or a good hard skim, especially some newer stuff you might not know, like AJR or the new Bon Jovi out there. So give it a shot. Try to be as truthful as you can. Yeah, not a lot of big upsets. I'm so glad you guys came around on the Bon Jovi one, though, because I was really championing that last year as my least favorite album of 2020. And thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody. We will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and thanks for playing along. And we will see you in the next one.